Hey, how's it going?
Hi, come on in.
Nice to meet you.
Nice to
How are
meet
things?
you.
Thanks
I'm
for hosting
Rachael.
us.
Yeah.
Wow, I love this place. When was it built?
Thank you so much. 1943.
Wow.
Yeah.
43?
Yeah.
Gosh. I just love old houses like that. They just got an old soul. The new houses are just so boring.
I agree completely. Well, come on in.
For our podcast episode today, we're taking you to the Roseway neighborhood of Northeast Portland, where Faithful Friends Executive Director Al Nodarse is chatting with Rachael Price. Rachael has been a mentor with our program for 9 years, dating back to those early days when we were still called Door of Hope Mentoring. Rachael was first matched with Biana when her mentee was just 9 years old. Now she's 18 and about to graduate. This conversation today is really encouraging on multiple levels and epitomizes so much of what we're all about. A stable friendship that has grown and matured through the years, but started with consistent baby steps where progress was hard to quantify. Let's get started.
So Rachael, tell us a little bit about yourself. Did you grow up here in the Portland area?
I did. I grew up in Southwest Portland.
Yeah, so growing up in Portland, what was that like? Did you go to school, high school here in the Portland area?
Yeah, I loved growing up in Portland. I had a really sweet childhood. I grew up in Southwest Portland, so I loved, the green and the beauty of it. It was a different time, in the late 80s in Southwest Portland, but just beautiful. I went to school at West Hills Christian School as a kid in my kind of neighborhood, and then I went to Westside Christian School.
Got it.
Mostly for the music program, but that was a good experience for me.
Okay.
I went to a local church in Southwest called Greater Portland Bible Church with my family, and it was a really lovely place to grow up. All my family's from here, so I was surrounded by family and both sides, grandparents and all that, so it's good.
So what do you do for a living?
I'm a professional musician.
Wow, that's fantastic. And tell me did that start, that passion, at the high school level, with a music background?
My passion for music started really early on. I was very small, probably 2 or 3, when I started making up songs. My parents they're both singers, so I grew up in a musical household, so my passion was pretty natural. It just happened. And then in high school, I started taking it pretty seriously, had vocal lessons from the age of 10, and then went to music college. So, my whole life.
Wow. And first thing I think of is you always hear parents saying, don't do that, have a backup plan. I mean, were your parents, since they were musicians, really supportive of what you wanted to do, or were they kind of nervous about that?
In terms of support, my parents were great. My mom hadn't had a lot of encouragement with college or school she wanted to go to, so she was really passionate about my brother and I being able to go where we wanted and study what we wanted. So that was a huge gift. My brother actually went to University of Denver and studied poetry and Russian lit and all these amazing things, and she, wanted me to be able to go to music school if that's what I wanted. So they were pretty supportive, which is surprising.
And I know that your husband, Luke, is a musician, so that's what you guys do. So how does that work? It's fascinating to meet someone that actually does this for a living.
Yeah, my husband and I are both full-time musicians, so it is really fulfilling in a lot of ways. It's what we both love and are passionate about and really feel like it's what God's called us to. At times it's really hard. When we went to school for music, there was no streaming. People still purchased music. So it's a totally different ball game than what I thought it would be. It's really hard to keep things going, if you will. So we really love it. We love touring together, playing shows, writing music. Those are like the top favorite things that we love and are passionate about. And then the business side of things and booking gigs and all that can be strenuous and a bit of a stretch for both of us, but we're learning as we go.
Yeah, I would think that would be the fun part. It's the playing of the music. And I'm curious, how did you guys find out, or how did you find out about Faithful Friends?
I found out about Faithful Friends. I was going to Door of Hope, Southeast. At that time, there was only one of our churches. Now we have Southeast and Northeast. I was at Door of Hope, and a representative came and started talking to the congregation about Faithful Friends. And I just felt instantly like that was something I had to investigate. I felt like God had kind of been working on me for a few years about being involved in a younger person's life, specifically a young girl. And that was like the first, I felt like the door opened and I saw a practical way to do that. And so I just followed up on it and then said yes, and here we are.
Wow. And had you ever thought about mentoring before the Faithful Friends folks had come to the congregation and spoken with you guys?
I hadn't thought about mentoring so much, like not that specific word, I guess, but I saw this documentary with a friend of mine in 2011. And it was kind of all about how specifically girls were just still falling behind, like societally, just not as many opportunities, not as much encouragement. And that really just broke my heart. And I thought, what could I do to be a supportive presence? So like the word mentoring didn't come up for me, but I knew that I wanted to be a part of a solution for a young girl. And then, the mentoring piece kind of fell into place when I heard about Faithful Friends. It seemed like a great way to do that.
And I'm curious, when you first started evaluating this, did you have any doubts or fears about being a mentor since you'd never done that before?
Yeah, I did have some doubts and fears about becoming a mentor. I think the classic ones from other mentors that I've talked to is, are they going to like me? What if it's not a good fit? What am I going to do with them activity-wise? I think the older you get, we tend to kind of lose sight of our childhood and, what's fun for a 9-year-old today? It's been so long since I was 9, just those types of worries and questions. But I think once I met her and the relationship started, those things started to fade away a little bit.
Got it. And being that Biana is Latino, and I know her mom speaks good English and so forth, but was that an intimidating factor? Because I think some people sometimes get hung up and say, hey, I'm a Caucasian and I'm mentoring a Latino or so forth, but it's really about just being there, present in that child's life. So did you have any issues with that?
Biana being, from a Latino family, that did cause me to be nervous because I think I really want to be aware and sensitive to kind of that savior complex, even just as Christians, like, oh, I know something you don't, or I have the answers, or my way is the right way. Just kind of coming into someone's culture with that type of attitude was something I really didn't want to do. So I think that caused me to be probably cautious and try to be sensitive to their way of doing things. And I've really just learned a lot about her culture, and they're super open with me and very generous and, try to help me with a little bit of Spanish here and there. I don't speak any at all, but they're very gracious with me. So
Well, it's obviously worked well. And tell me what those first 6 months, because I've been a mentor since I was 24, so I remember how nervous I was at first. It's like, gosh, what are we going to do? Am I right for this and so forth? So what did that look like those first 6 months?
the first 6 months of mentoring, well, I should back up a little bit and say I lost my brother in 2015, right before I started mentoring. And that was actually kind of what set me over the edge. I saw a quote that said, if you're grieving or if you're, having a really hard time, something good to do is to learn something new or do something new. And I just thought, what if I put, all of this grief energy and this hard time in my life into a positive and started investing in someone else instead of getting lost in grief. So that happened in March, and then I did the training and I started mentoring Biana in May of 2015. So it was a pretty quick turnaround emotionally to then go invest in someone, but I just felt like God was calling me to it. So the first 6 months were actually pretty hard because she's very shy. She mostly didn't talk at all. I would say up until the first year.
Wow.
Yeah, so I would ask Biana a question, how is school going for you? What's going on with your sister? Just kind of the basics. And a lot of times, I would say most of the time, I would get no response at all. So that, as a mentor, you start questioning, do they like me? Is this working? Does she want to hang out with me? All those questions are kind of going, but I really was committed, especially to that first year, because that's what you sign on for with Faithful Friends. So I prayed a lot when I would pick her up, when I'd drop her off, when we'd be hanging out. It's like, man, God, I don't know what to say or do. It seems like she's not interested. So it was tough. It was tough to keep going when I didn't have a sense of if it was going well.
Yeah, and we hear that a lot with our mentors, those first 6 months and so forth. You kind of question if you're really making a difference and so forth. Did you find that the staff were really helpful in supporting you and guiding you and making sure that you had what you needed?
The staff were very helpful, very supportive. I would go to some of the events that they held, so we would get to connect with other mentors and mentees, which were really fun and kind of took the pressure off and allowed that camaraderie between mentors. And even for her to see other kids, having a good time with their mentors. I think it just kind of normalized the relationship too and made it feel really comfortable for everyone. But yeah, the staff at Faithful Friends was really supportive, very helpful.
So for folks that don't know a lot about mentoring and what those first 6 months or a year was like, it may be kind of intimidating when they hear something like that, but what would you and Biana do? Would you guys just go to a park or hang out? Or, because you said she wasn't talking a whole lot.
Yeah, we would, oftentimes since we started in May, we would go to parks a lot. I would usually bring like crafts or watercolors or something, and we would just create. She was very creative and enjoyed that, so that was an easy thing to do. We played Frisbee in the park, things that don't require a lot of talking. It's just spending time together. Sometimes we would go, she loves like arcades, so we would go to the, quarter world and just play games. We did play a lot of board games too, which was fun. She always liked games. We would go to a coffee shop and play Scrabble. Right. And just kind of sit there, turn by turn. And one thing, it does seem intimidating, but the reason that I kind of held on, and one of the things that gave me hope about spending time with her, is a couple months in, even if she didn't talk at all during, our time together, I would drop her off at her house and I would give her a hug, and she'd give me a hug, and she just wouldn't let go. Wow. So she hadn't said anything for 2 hours, but then she wouldn't let me go. Yeah. And so in my mind, I'm like, well, that is something. Yes, absolutely. And that made me think she's enjoying this. She wants me to come back. It's working. But it was just so sweet, when she was like 9.5, 10, that was happening.
Well, thank God you stuck with it, because a lot of folks would have said, hey, this is not working, she's not talking, and so forth. And little did you know what a huge difference you were making, even though she wasn't verbalizing. So tell me how that relationship evolved, because you guys have been matched for so many years now. How have things changed?
Yeah, our relationship has evolved quite a bit from that early phase. So now, that was when she was 9, and now Biana is 18, and she is a senior in high school at St. Mary's. So yeah, we've gone a long distance together. So one of the things that I noticed about Biana as our relationship started to get more comfortable, she started to open up more and more. Past probably like a year and a half in, started answering those questions, even if it was short responses. And just being more open with me, I started to see her some confidence start to come through. I think that was a big part of it. She just didn't have a lot of confidence in herself when we started. She was just pretty closed off with most things. And she started going to St. Andrews on Alberta, which we'd had talked about, and I kind of encouraged her to go for it. And that really helped too. Smaller class sizes. I think the teachers were really good. So I saw her confidence continue to grow. Started going to some of her school performances. That was really fun, So yeah, seeing her grow in confidence and grow in like self-expression over the years has been pretty amazing and dramatic, the difference.
Yeah, and I'm curious, especially that based on those first 6 months of that first year, I mean, how much more beyond your expectations has this relationship gone?
This relationship has gone way beyond my expectations. Now I'm her godmother and Luke's her godfather. So we got to go to her first communion at her Catholic church and, support her faith. And now, we're a part of the family, which I didn't expect, when I started mentoring her when she was so little. But now it's like, I just see a friendship that's going to last because we've already been through so much together and there's no reason why we wouldn't stay friends.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm her godmama, so I got to stick around, which is great.
Yeah, I know when I started mentoring, I did it because I wanted to give, and I didn't realize how much I was going to get out of it. And I don't know if you felt the same way, but it's just amazing, that gift that you get back.
I feel like I've received a lot more from this relationship than I've given.
Got it.
She's been just such a sweet friend and presence in our lives. And yeah, having all of that, just an experience with a different culture and getting to watch somebody grow up, at this stage of our life. We don't have kids. And so we had the bandwidth, and it was just a joy to be able to be present for a kid in that way and now see them flourishing. It's pretty amazing.
Yeah, and one of the things that we've seen, and I know Luke is engaged, but it's mainly yourself and Rihanna, but is how your relationship as a couple grows and strengthens. Have you seen that because of your relationship?
I wouldn't say so, because it has been mostly me and Biana.
Right.
But I think it's been really cool for her to see a married couple.
Yeah, and myself being Latino, I can't tell you how important that is to a Latino family. So I can't imagine how honored you and Luke are that they chose him to be a godfather, because he's not the mentor, but that's how much she thinks of him.
Yeah, that really touched me a lot when we found out that they wanted us both to be, the godparents. And that was Biana's decision. Her mom made that very clear, that she thought about it and she chose us. And even this Christmas, she wrote some poetry for us, and she wrote one for me and one for Luke. And Luke's just the one she wrote for Luke, I was just sobbing. It was so beautiful. And that's when you see the impact.
Yeah.
That's when you see it. I didn't know he was making a difference by just kind of giving her a hug and asking her a few questions and going back downstairs in the studio. But even that, just him being interested and engaged and wanting to care for her, like even intermittently over time, it matters.
Yeah, that's beautiful. And now that she's 18 and she's going to be graduating from high school, I mean, where do you see this relationship going long term?
Yeah, she's about to graduate. She actually got into the top 4 colleges of her choice, which I found out recently, and she was super excited to tell us that, and so proud of her. So I can see our relationship continuing on, just me being, I think, a solid presence in her life, continuing to check in on her, support her in any way she needs, see her through the college years. Those can be rocky times. So yeah, I'm just excited to see what she's going to do and who she's going to be and how I can be a part of that and support her in that.
Yeah. And what would you say to somebody, because I think a lot of people think about mentoring, but sadly a lot of people don't just jump in the pool. And it's beautiful how in some ways you're honoring your brother, and that's part of what kind of drove you to it and so forth. But anybody who's thinking about being a mentor and they're saying, gosh, I don't know if I'm the right person, I'm not perfect, I've got flaws, what am I going to do for this kid? What would you say to that person that's contemplating being a mentor?
I think I would say to someone who's considering being a mentor or who's interested in being a mentor, I would say that you definitely don't have to be perfect. You don't have to have any activity ideas at all. All that stuff is so small the thing that you have to remember is that you are going to make an impact. It's going to be bigger than you think. And I do think you'll probably receive more than you give in the relationship.
Yeah, I can attest to that. With my little brother Freddie, we got together every Wednesday because kids eat free at Fuddruckers. And I was a poor college student. Nice. So we'd go eat together, and sometimes we just hang out for a little bit. And then you don't find out till 5, 10, 20 years later the impact that had. So that's incredible. So tell me a little bit about your band. I'd love to know more about it.
My band that I have with my husband is called Love Dean, Dean, that's how you spell it. And we've been writing and playing music together for about 15, 16 years. We met in college, Luke and I, and we just started writing together naturally and made our first album in college. And then we released our second one in 2021, and we're working on our third one now, currently.
And how would you describe the type of music that you guys play?
The music that we play, we describe as kind of soul pop or indie soul. So it's definitely inspired by kind of old soul music, but it has a modern take on soul and vintage gospel type of music. So we love, like backbeats and horn lines and upright bass and all that sort of stuff. But then it kind of has that like Americana pop type of influence. So Luke grew up in the fiddle world. He's a fiddle player, and that's what he still does. He tours with other bands on fiddle, and then we tour as our band also. So we're kind of doing two things at once. We also teach some music camps together, which is really fun. So I'll go and teach vocals and songwriting, and Luke will teach guitar and fiddle, and those are really great experiences. We get to teach a lot of kids and adults, and it's really fun.
Well, I just want to thank you for your commitment, to Biana and her family, because we know it's made a huge difference. It's made a huge difference. And it just warms my heart, because that's what this is all about, is helping, just being there consistently week after week, and supporting that child and so forth. So thank you for all that you got. And I'll thank Luke also, because I know he's been a part of it too. So thank you for your commitment to Faithful Friends.
You're welcome. Yeah, and thank you to you and Faithful Friends for what you do for this city and these kids. It's really amazing, and I wish everyone would do it.
I agree.
I really do.
I think every kid should have a mentor. I know I needed one when I was a teenager, so we could all use that. Yeah.
Definitely.
We hope you've enjoyed this conversation between Al and Rachael on the Mentoring Enthusiast podcast by Faithful Friends. We work in the Portland metro area of Oregon to match volunteers from area churches with kids ages 6 to 9 who want a mentor. We actually made a special video highlighting Rachael and Biana's mentoring journey, and you can find that on our Faithful Friends YouTube channel, accessed from our website at ffpdx.org. Thanks for watching or listening. Hope to see you again next time.